We had the close fight. We predicted. Unfortunately, we predicted the wrong winner. And Josh Taylor is now the guy at 140 pounds. Don't know how long that's going to last because he has some other options that we'll talk about in a second. It was a good fight. Freddie Roach and Emmanuel Stewart, they were offensive coaches, like offensive-minded coaches, and I totally forgot that Jose Carlos Ramirez fired Freddie Roach and went to Robert Garcia. Now, Robert Garcia, if you look at his history, when he coaches guys, he won't necessarily add something to make them better or focus on their strengths and try to make them stronger, or look at their weaknesses and try to tweak those a little bit. What he does is, and he's done this numerous times, he'll come up with this game plan that just doesn't seem to be in the fighter's best interest. And I'm going to say that there are two things I saw happen. One was totally on Ramirez and one was on the trainer early on that I saw. And I was like, you know what? This guy's not going to win. The first thing is, in the fighter meetings, they spoke about this in round 1, round 2, whatever it was. Ramirez had told them that they were coming with a different type of game plan. It's just going to be totally different than what he's used to doing. And I'm like, Robert Garcia does this sometimes. And a lot of times it's not successful. And fans are like, well, why did they do it this way? Why didn't they do it that way? And so early on, and Timothy Bradley Jr. said this. He said, I like the patience of Ramirez, and I didn't, because when he snapped out of it after it was either round 2 or 3, where he just said, all right, enough of this. I'm going on the attack. Josh Taylor, he didn't know what to do with it early on. The problem is Ramirez picked different times to do it. Listen, and this goes back to Garcia. When you get to the dance, you got to use whatever got you there. And so this patience gets him in trouble, and it gets Ramirez outboxed. It has against Cepeda, against Postal. It's like when he went for it early and he buzzed him and he hurt him to the body, and that one round, was it round 3 or 4 when he kind of just snapped out of it? I'm like, all right, he's got this guy's number. And then he just kind of went back to being patient, and I'm like, nah. And so I knew he would take some hits, but I'm like, look, you gotta be you, man. Forget this game plan. So I think before Taylor, I don't think he could do this before the change to, ironically, Tyson Fury's trainer before he fired him, Ben Davison. Davison is a guy who he makes you more technically proficient. The Taylor I know before him would have probably tried to mix it in more instead of being, and he did at points. And as I stated, I think he was a little stronger than Ramirez would have thought. But you gotta look. all of this new, you did something, what, 27, 28, however many times, and it was successful. Well, do it 28 to 29 times. Like, don't get to the moment and then say, oh, let me blink. The second thing, and this one was on Ramirez, something happened early on. And I get sportsmanship and everything, but something happened, and he does this Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, that glove tap stuff. Stuff happens with Mosley, and like every big fight, he's tapping the guy's glove. My bad. No, listen, I get the sportsmanship thing, but this dude was pushing you in front of the elevator the other day, getting under your skin. Like, you can do that glove tapping after the fight. Hey, good fight. But this is, and I'm like, Ramirez, this is like you giving in. This was before Taylor did anything to get his respect or anything. It was just like, they might have had like a little clash or something. They whatever. He just extended his glove to do the tap. And I'm like, come on, dude. So this fight reminded me of Kell Brook versus Sean Porter. Kell Brook won that fight, and he won it on my card. But he did way, way, way too much holding. And Taylor did a lot of holding. If he got close to getting in trouble, he held. And then when he got buzzed, he held for sure. And I'm like, look, eventually you got to start saying you're holding too much or something. But that's Kenny Bayless. I had a problem with Kenny Bayless tonight because he kept getting caught up between saying break or punch out, and then he would kind of, all right, break, okay, and then either Taylor or Ramirez, mostly Taylor, would throw a punch, and then he'll back off like to say, as if he never said break. And I'm like, dude, make your mind up. Are you going to tell him to break or punch with the free hand? And I thought he struggled with it the entire night. Another thing Taylor did that which was good is he did a good job of landing and then smothering like a Bernard Hopkins does. Let me rush you or whatever, land my shot and then grab you or smother you so you can't. And that's just veteran stuff. And I'm telling you, this Ben Davison, I'm telling you, I think he taught him that. Going back to Bayless, I'm in a couple of boxing groups. I know Aldo Vergara left a comment. Yeah, and the group, a couple of the boxing groups did too. Bayless is terrible. He's awful. I got a Kenny Bayless story too. I'll tell it some other time, but because I ran into him when I was in Vegas last time. I knew Ramirez was going to take hits. We said that in a prior video, but I don't think he recovered totally from a few shots. He didn't recover as well as I thought. And I'm not necessarily talking about the two knockdowns. This fight was decided by one knockdown. That was the difference in the fight, not the two. And so, as I called it, a lot of people said knockout. It's not going a distance, but it was going to be close. In an argument either way, I think you're not going to get that much of an argument on the way of Ramirez unless somebody says, I gave him one extra round. Then it's a draw. One thing I didn't understand about Andre Ward's card is Timothy Bradley Jr. said something about, he said, Dre? This guy's Dre now. He said, I think Taylor took a round off there. And then Andre said, oh no, he's taking the past 2 rounds off. And then the round after that, was it the 11th? I gave, as well as Ward gave the round to Ramirez. Then when they showed his card, the 2 rounds that Ward said Ramirez, that Taylor took off, he scored both of those rounds 10-9 to Taylor. So I'm like, you're saying he just took the past 2 rounds off, but you gave both of them to Taylor. And those were rounds that I would have likely given to Ramirez, because I thought Taylor kind of let him back in. And Jose Carlos start applying the pressure, but then he didn't go full throttle with it. Look, you got to sell out at some point, man. I mean, okay, you got dropped. One time you got dropped because Bayless is confusing people with this punch out and break. I think Bayless might have said break. And I get the protect yourself at all times stuff, but you know what? That's a cop-out a lot of times. If you're going to tell them break, then get in between them and push the one guy back and say, all right, step back or whatever, or both guys. But as Ward said, it was a rookie mistake by a veteran fighter. And he's right. That was the uppercut. The other short shot that he caught him with right on the jaw, I think that was at the very beginning or the end of one round. I think it was at the very beginning. He just got caught. But that I figured that would happen, the getting caught and taking the hits, because just his style. And then he came in straight most of the night, and the Jose Carlos Ramirez I know, maybe, I don't know if it was the time off or the new trainer or whatever, he usually will pivot and come in at these angles, man. And it's not necessarily just the angle, but it's the pivot that allows him to get those hooks off when you know a hook is coming. There's the old ambulance. Think again, boy, I tell you, it's a curse. And he just didn't do it. So, but the difference was one knockdown, or we've had a draw. And I think if the judging would have given him one more round, I'd like to see the cards. I'm going to look up the cards online. And it was a draw. I still think more people would argue for Taylor, because knockouts cause amnesia, right? One of the things Ramirez's trainer, Garcia, said was that we've won every round except the ones you were knocked down. And guess what? He's on to something there. So, now for Taylor, listen, I think with Taylor, Gervonta Davis called him out and said, after I finished my business with Mario Barrios, I want the winner of the Ramirez-Taylor. And boy, can you imagine if Ramirez would have won and him and Davis fought? Two guys that just come forward guys, and one guy punches in volume. And I think if Ramirez could survive some shots, and who knows how Davis's punch is going to carry up in weight, that he would eventually turn it up and wear Davis out, because just stamina type thing. I look at Taylor, and I don't. If Taylor is on like he was tonight, I don't think Davis would beat him. So I don't know. Davis said he's going to stay at 140, and he took this fight at 140 because he wants to be a great fighter. That sounds like a line from his promoter. We'll see. I just don't. I think if Davis beats Barrios, which I expect, I just think something else will happen. Like, I just see something stupid happening. Taylor also, I don't know how Taylor or Ramirez do with making the weight. I don't know how much of a struggle it is, but Taylor looked big. not the height thing. He just looked big. So he's probably going to be open to a Terrence Crawford fight and just a vacate and move up type thing. Or he might try to keep the belts and say, well, let me take a money thing and then come back. Like Kell Brook with Golovkin, and then he came back and fought Spence Jr. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I really wanted that crowd because I think we would have just saw a different Ramirez, which would have given us a different Taylor. For Jose Carlos, go back to Fresno, fight in front of those 15,000 folks, because things will probably be opened up. If by the next time he fights, unless there's a phase 2 of this pandemic, which some predict, and just get a win, man. Get a win in front of that big crowd, man. And then take it from there. And then if you're going to stay at 140 and Taylor vacates, see, now you got a mission. You can go back on. So we'll see. But good job by both fighters. I mean, both had their moments. Taylor did what he had to do when he landed with accuracy. The one shot was just a dumb mistake by Ramirez. The other shot, I think, would have happened no matter what, because he came in and got caught. He squared up a lot, and then he didn't have that energy. And I understand he's getting hit, but I think something took it out of him. And I'm talking about something else. And I there's something, but he had his moments. Taylor let him back in. Taylor started off strong. Ramirez came on, and Taylor he picked his shots, and he scored, and he kept him off. Another thing Bradley talked about was how Ramirez, he just abandoned his jab for some reason. When he uses it, great things happen, and when he did, certain things happen. But I don't know. It's something took away his energy, and I'm talking about outside of the uppercut, that second knockdown. So maybe it was a body shot. Maybe he had problems making weight. I don't know. The layoff. I don't know. I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm just wondering. And you got to give maybe Josh Taylor had more to do with it than you think. He got inside. I said that Ramirez would probably find him to be stronger than he thought, and I think he was. But when he got to the point, and once again, this is not talking in terms of when the knockdown happened, but let's just say there were certain points where Ramirez was just going backwards. Taylor was stepping forward, and that's a no-no for Ramirez's style. And Ramirez is a guy who just has this work rate that has you, if you don't put your road work in, you're like the one breathing hard in the second half of the fight. And I found it to be the other way. Taylor ran at times, got out of the way, did a lot of movement, so that 22-foot ring helped a lot. But he did enough body work of his own too that slowed things down. His jab was effective when he felt like using it, and it kind of forced Ramirez to reset at times. But so fight was good, wasn't great. It was something about Lomachenko's energy. I know he was injured, but in his fight where it was just like no fans too, and I just, not making excuses for either fighter, but I just want to see how they fight in front of the full houses, to see how that energy. So it's two different types of energy. When I say Ramirez is energized by them 15,000 fans, it's not just because I'm at Fresno and I'm at home. It's the fans themselves Like, in other words, it doesn't have to be Fresno. But if that same group came somewhere else, Lomachenko fights off the energy of the fans and not, how can I explain this? Like, they're not from his country supporting him, but the moment is not too big for Lomachenko. Whereas literally feeding off the fans for Ramirez is like this is my family. More Lomachenko, it's more the atmosphere. And I just like to see how different it may be. Now, once again, he was an active, or tried to be active, but I don't know about Nakatani as an opponent. But see, I respect Lomachenko because he's just a fighter. Like, man, just line him up. He was like, if I'm going to be great, then let me test myself against a guy who many ringside, I was there, thought beat Lopez. A lot of people thought Nakatani beat Lopez. And then Lopez went into this big-time act after the fight, which led me to believe he thought he might have lost. He's like sliding down off the stage because I can't walk on my leg. I think I'm going to need surgery and all this other stuff. It's like, buddy, didn't you just do a cartwheel? I mean, like a backflip or something? Now you can't like use the leg at all? Come on now. I thought Nakatani gave him a lot of problems watching it live. I don't think I watched the replay. Did I watch the replay? But ringside, I'm telling you, a lot of the media thought Nakatani won. They just didn't say it out loud or on their videos post-fight or their web pages because they don't want to lose that top-ranked credential. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, but congratulations to the Tartan Tornado. It's another UK champion. He takes those belts. It seems like whenever they're UK champions, it seems to be like they always going home or staying home with more than one belt. So AJ got all the belts except 1.5. And I say 1.5 because Fury has what is that one? The WBC, I think, maybe. But then you have Trevor Bryan, who I would love Mike Tyson to fight, who I would love Evander Holyfield to fight. It looks like we may get Shannon Briggs. He got that WBA, whatever you call it, regular. And he's very beatable. Don't know if Shannon Briggs can do it. Would have loved to see Tyson try to do it. Would have liked to see Evander try to do it. And that would have been a way for Deontay Wilder to collect a quote belt. The WBA, man, jeez. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with this. So we got Pacquiao versus Spence Jr. signed, and Fury, Wilder, 3, and we got Davis Barrios. All of these are interesting fights. Gary Russell Jr., Earth to Gary Russell Jr., Earth to Keith Thurman Jr. Come in. So anyway, let me cut this. I've talked too long, but what do we got next week? Devin Haney. I think we got Devin Haney and Jorge Linares. That'll be interesting. Linares, if he's on, he can give you fits, and Haney guaranteeing he's gonna put on a show. So he's confident about it. And something else is next week too, right? It's Devin Haney and Jorge Linares. So I'm trying to think the more immediate stuff. Wait a minute. Today is the 22nd. So, Haney Linares. Something else. Is that the Nonito Donaire on Showtime? So Haney Linares is the zone. I think it's Nonito Donaire. June 5th, the hold up, 22, 20. Yeah, June 5th, the following week, 2 weeks from now, is interesting. I don't know how good this Brogdon guy is, but the return of Daniel Dubois. So this Brogdon guy, if I can remember, he had a decent knockout rate. But I don't know if he fighting cream puffs or not. But I'd like to see him hit Daniel Dubois with his hardest shot to see. I just want to see what happens with Dubois. And then the following day is that circus that I won't talk about, even though Pascal and Badu Jack 2 will be on there. I think Jared Hurd and Julian Williams are on that card too. I think. Are they on the same? No. Julian Williams is on Gervonta Davis's card. Jared Hurd is on the circus card. And who else comes after that? The New Wave Fighters a few weeks after that. Teofimo, Shakur Stevenson, sometime around that. Charlo versus Montiel, whatever you want to call that. Chavez Jr. versus Anderson Silva, and then Chavez Sr. versus Hector Camacho. That's sometime in June too. Jaime Munguia, Lomachenko, all that stuff is June. June is going to be hot. And anyway, catch you guys on the next one.